Hello, my name is Francesca, and this is Critical Babe Theory. Welcome, and today I have Nicole Treska on, writer.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I wanted to follow that up with class warrior, but does that feel sort of insane?
It does, but aren't we there?
Yeah, sure. So would you self-identify as a class warrior?
No, I think in ways I would identify as a class traitor.
Oh, tell us
I live a much more comfortable existence than the one I grew up in and the one my family grew up in. So I think in ways it's part of what I talk about in the book is like achieving a level of class that makes my family think I'm an asshole.
Okay, hold on. I really think there's a lot to talk about. But this is the book by
my
Nicole, Wonderland, A Tale of Hustling Hard and Breaking Even, about your youth.
Yes.
In growing up in Boston.
Yes.
Which we will get into. But wait, okay, hold on. But what about class mobility?
I mean, I think that, I'm not a class traitor, but I do think that, we'll see how things go in the next years.
Aspirational.
But I do think the mobility, somebody asked me this actually on book tour, was can you move classes? Can you jump from one class to another? And it was a friend I'd gone to high school with, and he said, because when we were teenagers, you said you couldn't. And I was like, oh, shit, I didn't.
Look at you now.
I also, were you listening to me? I don't remember saying that ever, but I was living in Littleton, Colorado at the time, which was very suburban, and we'd come from, a working-class Boston family, and I think that I was like, no, that's who we are. Now I live in this space. It's weird. And I've kind of moved around a lot since then, but I guess I think you can move from one class to another, but you never stop being formed or affected by the things, by your birth class.
There's no total escape velocity.
No, absolutely. I still don't go to the doctor when I'm sick.
Right.
And that to me is that's poor people shit. I still panic.
Right.
When money is slightly dipping below an arbitrary number I've decided is safe.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I still get in fights. I sometimes get into little altercations on the street.
Yeah.
And I would say that would be an indicator of, although my situation is so my mom grew up, I would say, in the, do people even say low? They don't say lower classes. They say low class, but working class. And my mom grew up working class, and then had the classic American pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and then she was able to by her own skin on her own teeth make a middle class life for me. But it's almost
amazing.
Hereditary. It's genetic, but the genetic immigrant, scrappy, poor person
who raised
me and is then in my body will come out.
Yes. I think that threatening to fight people on the street, a thing I also do.
Okay.
My therapist is Nicole, I know that sounds like it would feel good. I was like, it does, Lisa.
Yeah.
I have punched people. It feels really good. And she's like, but it's not good.
Yeah. I will accept that it's dangerous. I'll totally accept that.
Yes. It is sometimes very good and necessary.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm going to say it's 100%. Yeah, but I'm not particular. I'm short, and I think I have a lot more. I walk into a situation with a level of chutzpah and cockiness and delusion that is perhaps not
which
helpful.
Gets you there.
Yeah.
I think that is very helpful. I think I've seen a lot bigger people without that can't swing.
Yeah.
You just have to scare the bigger person
You have
away.
to scare the bigger person. Yeah, by being crazy. But I think of that as sort of or I've shared this on the show before, there's one time I was at a petting zoo with my children, and this goat went after one of my children, and I made this noise that I could not reproduce now, but I made this noise that I'd never made in my life before, that I'd never even heard in my life before, but it was this ancestral noise of knowing how to interact with goats.
An animal. It was animal to animal.
Animal to animal to get that animal away from my child.
Was the goat
the goat immediately
Okay,
backed
lady.
off. Because it, like, knew that I come, from the hillocks of Poland.
I'm like, where are you? Yeah, okay, as an Albanian.
Yeah.
Hello.
So, like,
yeah.
not that far
We can
apart.
handle livestock.
We can handle livestock.
Yeah.
In fact, they did for millennia. So I just, like, I had this deep moment of, like, oh, right, we think that this nature versus nurture, which, like, at this point, after especially having kids, I'm sort of like, I think it's all just nature.
Yeah. Well, and in a larger conversation about leftist politics, it's the nature of, like, needing to feel secure that I think is what has to lead you down a road to those kinds of beliefs, because our system fails and crashes every 10 or 15 years, and you don't get to be, like, I grew up even in that middle class existence not secure, and just sort of looping through, like, lower middle class, kind of middle class, living with rich people but being poor, like, all of those different iterations. And my husband, who was a coder, a software developer for Bloomberg for 21 years, got laid off. Right. And I was like, oh, you're not more important. Like, I was like, oh, you have a job. You have a job,
like a corporate job.
You have a real job. I am an adjunct at a college.
Yeah.
And it turns out we are equally useless in the, like, larger crush of capitalism. And, like, you're not safer than me. I thought you were safe. You're not safe. Nobody's safe. And, like, and then that's where I'm like, oh, even if you do move from one social class to another social class, you are one layoff away from falling 3 social. Like, it's just a very precarious thing where you sit.
Well, and it's different, I think, in America than from Britain, where social class does sort of care. Like, they'll talk. I was just reading a profile of who's the actor who played Jon Snow in.
Oh, I don't know his name, but he dies in every movie. That's
Kit Harington.
Yes.
Kit Harington.
Oh, that's a different guy. Maybe his dad. But Kit Harington.
Kit Harington, he's an actor, and he had some kind of profile in the Times. And basically what they talked about was how he was born, his mother was like a baroness anyway, he came from this very high upper class. I don't know what that is in Britain. They give you awards. Yeah, you're special. But they had no money. It seems like there's a constancy of class in a social hierarchy in Britain, where even if you lose the finances, you can stay in the lane. Whereas in the U.S., where we don't have that, it's like without finances, like you go into free fall.
And you will be bankrupt. It doesn't matter. You'll, like, it's a Schitt's Creek situation. Sort of.
Yeah.
No, and I think, my husband grew up in a class system like that, where they had a nanny and an au pair, and I'm like, oh, you were rich? And he's like, no. And
we were
like,
just regular.
Yeah. And they were in a framing that, like, I don't think I could ever understand. Like,
that's what I've been thinking about this a lot recently, where I just feel like when people say, like, I want to be rich, what they really mean is they want to be middle class, but from the 80s.
Yeah.
Which is like having regular childcare, going on vacations, occasionally, if you were like a white yuppie from San Francisco, like my mom, going to the opera, like whatever. You have these, like, going out to dinner sometimes with friends.
A house with enough space.
With
like kind of a bigger than you need.
Yeah, a little bit bigger, but nothing. But, like, that was just being middle class. Normal. Whereas now that is, like, so aspirational and out of reach.
And the expense attached to that has become, it's like, it's absurd to live a normal middle class life. I'm very mad at the boomers.
Yeah, tell us.
For the how, like, I'm mad at the boomers for getting mad at me for being mad at them, that they have so much value in their house, and like, we don't get houses. And then they're like, don't get mad at me, and I'm like,
so sell your house.
It's like, or like my family, my mother was East Boston, came from housing, married into a military life that was a better, more stable life, worked a lot. She sold cars at Mercedes-Benz, married up into a very wealthy guy's house. She's not helping her kids buy houses. She's not using, it's like, that's all hers. And, like, I don't think that's rare. I do have to be careful I'm not conflating every boomer with my mom. Right. But I do see a trend of kids who are like, things are really bad right now, and my parents have a lot of money, and they're like, work harder.
So I guess I see the other side of it, which is like, I feel like I see a lot of people who their parents are the ones who are sort of facilitating everything in their life, but it's but the money is staying in such a narrow lane, either for the boomer themselves or just for like some of their direct descendants. But like this capital is all being held in this very narrow line and like not opened up into a wider realm. And something this makes me think about, which is like, this is a niche interest because not that many people want to be in Berkeley, California, but like you can't buy a house really in Berkeley, which is where if I were to move back to San Francisco, I might want to live in Berkeley. I grew up in the city, whatever. Get in the weeds of that. But the boomers just won't sell their houses. Right. So the housing market there, I mean, there's not enough housing, but also the housing market is insane because nobody's ever selling. So there's like, it's a place that should be vital and have families and have people of all different classes, but really all it has is like 75-year-olds in Tivas who will yell at you about categorizing your recycling. Do you know what I mean? And you can't really have a vital city or town when it's being ruled by
a gentocracy. I mean, it is, but it's the same. It is so that the top mirrors the bottom. And you're like, that's just everywhere. It's all the olds. I see it in the university system where you're like, oh, there are no new jobs for young professors. They're not giving them out. They're treating everybody like wage laborers at the bottom, but at the top are, tenured, so they should not have to retire. But they are a lot of older professors who are making the six-figure salaries that can live, and then 60% of the workforce is wage labor, contract semester by semester. So you're like, oh, it's just everywhere. There's like...
But what are they going to do? Are they not like replacing those tenure positions?
They're not.
Because they're just too expensive. Because they can rely on the adjunct labor.
And they've broken the system to make... It's like there was a moment, and this was... And unions are a big part of my things can be great in the working class on the left if unions, but then also unions are like, my union was all about the faculty but did not pay any attention to the adjunct faculty at all. So there was the protections for the faculty who had, I don't know, institutional value, but the actual like working class, they were like, oh, we don't even talk to you guys. And I was like,
but aren't you supposed to be here for us?
Yeah, but then they would come and be like, can you vote for our guy? And I'd be like, I don't. And then I got all conflicted. I was like, yes, I will. But also, like, I am literally not even factoring into this, conversation about what the contract should look like or how much money we're going to get paid. So there is I think, a group of the working class who are not even factoring into labor in a way that they feel they can engage. Right. My sister, who is now a firefighter, was in the post office, and they were like, you don't get a pension anymore. Or if you do, you have to be here 10 years on this schedule, and this schedule is like forever grueling and never improve. Like, it was a shakedown as opposed to a good civil job.
Oh, wow.
And it was terrible. There was no way to get out of the sort of bottom tier of the post office into like less than 12-hour days.
Less than 12-hour days?
Well, also Amazon and all of that, like, they are being bombarded, they're being cut, so they have no money to pay for new hires. So everybody who comes in is like an Amazon delivery driver. They're like, no pee. Like, it's just go. So I think even in the arenas where there used to be a healthy sense of like leftist communal solidarity, that's just gone because those jobs are atomized into like backbreaking physical labor. Right.
Which brings us to our topic today, which is like how the left could, and I guess by that, the Democrats could win, or maybe we can talk about not the Democrats, could win back the white working class.
Then thinking about this, I have a couple of things. My family still, like I said, I would say, arguably entirely lifted into a middle class background. Every single one of us is still doing working class jobs. And
wait. So how is that possible?
I think the quality of life in terms of like where we live, the kind of homes we live in, the kind of like my sister is still working class. She's a firefighter. I am still working class. I was like an adjunct. My sister Chelsea, who I think is probably the most exposed to insecurity in a financial way, was working at grocery stores through the pandemic.
Okay.
And she in Denver. And this was the example I was going to use. I feel like things have become so bad for the American worker that if they are not left leaning, they're going to atomize, or they're going to separate one way or the other, right? Like I have part of my family that is like, things are bad, and because of that, I hate immigrants, and I have an AK-47 now, and I love Trump. That's my firefighter sister. And then my other sister is like, people spit on me in the pandemic for wearing a mask, and I'm autoimmune, and like I didn't get paid overtime, and Kroger took all the money and became a much more class conscious person because of the experience that she went through in a corporate like money grab.
Got it.
During the pandemic. And then my dad, a vet, is like a lot more social minded than he used to be, I think because of the VA.
Yeah.
And like being involved in systems where he's treated like garbage, and like
he's treated like garbage by the VA.
By the VA. Well, I think as growing up in the military, I think it is fair to say everybody is treated like garbage by the VA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like, and God, I'm very grateful that they pay my dad a monthly income, but like beyond that, I think it's a pretty poorly run. Like
they're treating veterans like they're disposable.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and their families, and and it's like it seems to be part of the system of the VA is like bad service.
Got it. Because of cuts
and shitification.
Yeah.
I mean, I think way before that term. I think just for like forever, the VA's been like, we're making do, and then people are not being treated.
Yeah. So, this atomization of jobs, or with your family, people going in different directions. What do you think the defining difference was that led some family members in one direction and some family members in another?
Well, that is moving away from what I think about class and labor and into, maybe they're tied. I think some people are authoritarian in their personality. Like fundamentally. I think I've been reading the authoritarian personality by Theodore Adorno that went in and studied people post World War II to find out what created fascism in people, and it turns out largely it's like following authoritarian order, not questioning authority, and it creates a sadomasochism in people where they're like, I hate that I have to listen to you, but I do have to listen to you. So instead I will turn around and like be cruel to other people.
Okay.
And I see in the people I know who fall into this category, they've been hurt materially. They are not doing very well in that regard, or in some cases they very much are, but they have economic angst toward somebody. So it's China, it's immigrants, it's like whoever, and that is the sort of avenue that they turn all of that toward.
Okay.
And I get that. That's obvious. I think that's just MAGA, but I think that like fundamentally there's just a group of people who are going to feel wronged, a percentage of the population, and see the solution to that as hurting other people or controlling other people. Like that is, I just think, hopefully less than a third, but probably like I would say maybe in my heart, 20% of people.
You think 20% of people?
And I think there's some data to back this up, but like
are prone to authoritarian.
Are authoritarian in their nature. And I'm interested in this because of like parenting and how like if you are an authoritarian parent and you have a child who is not like what will you do to that child? And it's bad. So
I mean, I can say, as somebody who had an authoritarian parent, for sure, and to be play the devil's advocate, I look back now and I'm like, thank God. You know what I mean? Like, the strictness with which I was brought up, I think was very beneficial to me.
I think that strict is not authoritarian necessarily.
What's the difference?
I think that authoritarian includes like punishment in a sadomasochistic sort of like control at all. Like it's abuse to me. I think that being strict, and I think there are ways that those overlap. I grew up Catholic. We grew up in the military. Like there was a lot of that which was very authoritarian in the system, in those systems. But it's like, to me, if you are in a church where everybody is treated with respect and it's an open space, you're like, yes, sure, this exists under a sort of control and there are rules and it can be strict, but there is like love and kindness there. I think authoritarianism is like, you go to the church and it's like, where is your money? And like, did you sin? You're going to hell. Like, it can be a much more regimented, like closer to fascism. And that is, I think, in parents, being strict is like, I think, on that spectrum, but I wouldn't say that having strict parents is having authoritarian parents.
Okay. I guess it just also makes me think about how doesn't everybody want, I mean, it seems like people sometimes want a big, mean daddy to run everything because freedom is such a terrible burden.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that's, like, you know, I was talking to a friend in St. Paul and he said, wouldn't it just be easier to give up and be that and just do the easiest thing, which is be like, yes, tell me, daddy, who to be mad at, and I will be mad at them. So yeah, I think that's like an easy, or not even easy, but a natural way to feel. Again, I think to me it comes down to like, I don't know that you can accept what daddy says unquestioningly without applying unequal metrics to other, like, it's like, it's not a, if you're just listening to daddy all the time, you're just doing what he says and you're not thinking on your own, and thus
so that there's inherently more value in thinking for yourself.
I think so. I think there's inherently more value in rejecting authority than ceding to authority. I think that
there's inherently more value rejecting authority because authority is fundamentally flawed. Because
authority is fundamentally crushing. Like, this is my my experience of authority from church and military and family. It's like, I don't want to listen to any of them. I don't owe anybody respect because of your title. And like, I was raised being told these are the people that you have to respect, and they were all kind of monsters, right? Like,
well, that's what thinking about. So part of your story in this book, Wonderland, is about how your father was affiliated with the Winter Hill gang.
Yes.
So a gang to me sounds pretty authoritarian,
yes,
right? And people wanted, but there's this part where you talk about how nice it is to be like folded into the authority of something bigger than you. And where is it? Like, and I thought that was a really interesting idea that actually, that like, oh, well, that actually, this is about how crime pays, which I guess is sort of.
Was I saying I liked this? Or was I saying
to be in a
bad?
gang is to be respected and feared, to be legitimized. There was nothing petty about the mob, nothing poor. That, like, these people given not many economic opportunities, but did the gangs feel authoritarian to you?
I wasn't.
Even though they're fundamentally anti the authority of the federal government? Yeah,
but then they just replace it in their town, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it was the government, it was the authority. Mm-hmm. My life was dictated by the fallout of those relationships. Right. So I wasn't really hanging out with those guys. My dad and mother were involved with them, and then my dad went to prison. So by the time I was sort of like a kid, it was the consequences of that. But what I'll say is, you know, my mother's somebody who's married to somebody who is active in the mob currently, and I think has always found a lot of comfort in the daddy sort of like authoritarian figure. Her perception of the mafia was that it was fine, that it was completely authoritarian because it served her. And I remember being a kid, but I had a lot of like issues with like black gangs.
Right.
And I remember being a kid and being like, but I don't understand how it, like, so I think even like at a very young age, those authoritarian systems contradicted themselves to me in ways that I was like, but we're the Catholic Church. We're supposed to love everybody. You can't say people with AIDS are bad. Like, and those things felt really central to my person. And I didn't live in a system that allowed me to be not cool with all of these things. So
because why? Because what would happen? You get in trouble.
Oh yeah, by everybody, by church, by the military, like by my mother, who is a very, very rule-based individual. And yeah, I mean, I'm not like, I don't mind getting in trouble. Like,
sure.
But I wasn't seeking trouble out. But I just found that, and I think it exists now. If you look, you know, at the contradictions of like the Trump administration, you're like, none of the like things you're demanding of me do you do for yourself, or should I expect from you?
Sure.
So it just
hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy my whole life of growing up in like very tied to conservative systems.
Okay.
Of the church and the military. Those were like the foundational things that my mom was like, we're going to leave Boston.
We'll leave the gang.
Yes, but I will bring the mentality with me.
The gang boss mentality.
Yeah, and raise you guys with it.
But I do want to say in terms of getting in trouble, like getting in trouble with the Winter Hill gang, maybe would be probably pretty problematic, right? So it's like in some ways getting in trouble at Sunday school or getting in trouble, but like there are ways with these systems ramifications outwards where you could get conceivably in a lot of trouble.
Well, yeah, and to raise your kids aware of that and having grown up in that world creates its own desire to be an authoritarian, to keep people safe. Right. And this is like, you see this in poor communities a lot, that there are in immigrant communities a lot. There is like a fear that if you don't keep your kids close and on a short leash, they're going to go out and get killed or in trouble or involved in crime. And so I can understand from her perspective and from the way that she grew up why you would do that. But I also think that there is a predisposition in her person. Like there are 4 kids, and I'm like, I can see exactly which kids are pretty into being in charge and which kids are, like, even within our set of siblings. So I just think there's like natural personality types.
So then how do you explain your father's, I don't know if I'd call it conversion, but your father's change from being, I would imagine if you were a member of a gang, you would be predisposed to at least accepting authoritarian control, to being someone who you're saying now is like pretty far left.
Well, he was in the Marines as well, so he's like broken into the control thing, and then in the mob, and I think even in prison then. But I'd say that I would say he is a left guy for a guy who is that guy. Got it. It's much more of a liberal, but his worldview is toward equality. He doesn't think people should be treated unfairly, but if you like ask him about Gaza, he's like, well, they shouldn't have done that to themselves. I'm like, okay, so we're not there yet. Right. But I think how that happened, I think he was always a pretty sensitive, attuned dude who grew up in a violent family, went to a violent war, came home and paid. Like, I think it was a lot of those institutional ways and like authoritarian messages were kind of thrust upon him. I think is like a chillin' dude. He's sort of like, I like people. I don't know, but like he didn't have those choices. It was like, you're gonna go. There's a place in Boston that was shut down. It's called the Lyman School for Boys. It was in, I want to say, Peabody in Massachusetts, and it was the first boys reformatory in the country. and it was where they sent all of the kids of single mothers or like working class families who were truant or talked back.
Right.
And then they got sent to a rape camp.
Yeah.
And then they came out in the 50s and 60s and became the mafia. And I have like this whole theory about the people I come from and like the sexual abuse that undergirds so many of these like institutions of punishment. My aunt was schizophrenic. She was like she had a electroshock therapy for years. It was violent. It was just violent to exist then, and thus more authoritarian.
Yeah.
By its nature. And I think once you kind of get free of that, if it is in you to not be that way, you get to not be that way. But like some people never get free of that, I guess.
So wait, so the school that they were sent to, so a lot of children were sent there, then there was abuse there, and then those kids who came out of that academy became like the mobsters?
And criminals. Like East Boston, the cities around Boston that my family are all from in the 50s and 60s, those kids became a lot of people who were in the mob. They became like the petty criminals who did the Isabella Gardner heist. Right. There's like, what was his name? It isn't David Carr, is the New York Times writer. There was another Carr who was a Boston Globe journalist who worked with the mob, and at one point, he's the Boston mob. At one point, he's like, these are idiots who want to hang out and get drunk, and so doing crimes is the like...
Facilitates the getting drunk?
Yeah, the partying, and they're like, these guys don't want to do crime, they just want to like hang out.
Everybody just wants to have a good time.
Yeah.
Just like all the people emailing Epstein, they didn't want to like, they just wanted to hang out and go to a good party, you know?
As a complete swerve here into that stuff goes right into the lit scene. There are like... Tell me. Lauren Stein.
Is in
this is going on.
Is in the Epstein files?
This is going on the internet. Yeah. Lauren Stein emailed Michael Wolff to say, I got on the shitty media men list and this other guy on the shitty media men list needs a lawyer.
Yeah, okay, so just to go, shitty media men list, that happened in 2017?
16, so yeah, sometime, it was, and I learned
early
this.
Me Too.
Yes, like, foundational Me Too moment, and a lot of those shitty media men were magazine editors and people in the sort of literary scene, and a lot of them were mad.
About the list.
About their presence on the list and the list in general. The woman who put the list together was sued, and her post that I saw was the screen grab of Lauren Stein's email about the man who sued her. I believe his name was, I'm not going to say his name because I won't get it wrong, but whoever it was, Lauren's email said, hey, Michael, my friend so-and-so is on the shitty media men, and he is not shitty, and he needs legal advice, and that would be great if you could help him and like other things, and then closes out and says, thanks, Lauren. Also, if you are going to circulate this around, please leave my name off.
Okay, but wait, but why would that be in the Epstein files?
Because he emailed it to Michael Wolff.
Okay.
Epstein's, like, journo buddy.
Right. Okay.
And he forwarded it to Jeffrey Epstein.
Wolff forwarded it.
Yeah.
It seems like Wolff was forwarding emails left and right.
Well, but this is the thing. Like, Lauren Stein didn't do anything in that regard, but the way that I am somebody who has been indicated for sexual harassment, and so has my buddy, and they need a sexual harassment lawyer. How is that 2 steps from Jeffrey Epstein? Like, how does that go immediately to the top floor of pedophiles? That to me was shocking. I was like, oh, there's really not that much distance between
elites,
creeps, creepy elites, and the way that they function. Everybody knows everybody. Well,
I guess I feel a little less sensationalistic about it, which is just that, not that elites are by, I don't know, I haven't settled this question in my mind. I don't know if elites are by definition creepy, that to have that kind of power you need to be fundamentally creepy. Right. I can't speak to that yet. I haven't really thought that through.
I agree.
But I do feel like, to me, the Epstein stuff just makes clear they're just like, there aren't that many elites, and the ones with money that are elites are all going to know each other because everybody's just trying to get close to money.
Did you, when you moved to New York, discover this about New York?
Well, I
Oh, that's right. You were here as a kid.
Well, I moved here when I was 12, but I moved, and I have to be careful about how much I say. My mom's boyfriend, who we moved here to live with, was like a very wealthy and powerful man. I should probably search his name anyway. But I can imagine that when you're in the top echelon of like New York power brokers, they must all know each other. And I think that people are willing to forgive any transgression when it is, if they can get further in either power or money. 100%.
100. And where I realized it wasn't even at the power broker. I suppose it's baby power brokers. It was private school kids.
Well, I went to a private school.
Okay,
and
so see, I didn't know about that.
So like, I remember the Weinsteins through a screening for, because at one of, not Harvey, what's his brother's name? The other Weinstein, Bob. Maybe his name is Bob. His daughter went to my school, so they threw a private screening just for kids who went to my school for the importance of being earnest. So I might have been at that screening. Was Harvey there?
Right.
I don't know. Do you know what I mean? But like the point is, like, there are so few ultra wealthy, powerful people in this world. There's just not that many of them, and they all kick it together.
Yeah. Like, and we've known that, like, with
that's always
the Clintons and the Trump, like, outside of party politics.
Right.
And it feels like nothing is new in what we're learning. It just is somehow grosser and
it's just so
bigger.
Obvious. Yeah, I guess I feel like, I want to understand more. I think, because I do think there's two distinct classes in the Epstein files. I think there are people who are actually just okay with sex with underage girls.
Yes.
There's those people.
Yes.
And then I think there's people who are willing to overlook any sin to get closer to power and money.
And that is probably the larger group.
Yeah, maybe like 2/3 to 1/3.
Yeah.
I do think
a lot of them are doing a lot of creepy sex.
I've been thinking about this. I just think, because what's appealing about, if this is dark, if I'm going to put myself in the position of a dude in Epstein's orbit, what is it that's appealing about being with a younger woman? I'm not going to get into, like, let's say somebody who's like, they've gone through puberty.
Sure.
So we're not talking about pedophilia, but we're talking about an underage girl, so someone between the ages of like 15 to 17. What's appealing about that? I would imagine, there's the superficial stuff of like youth and beauty, and body, but I think what's really appealing is like you're having sex with a blank slate.
Yeah, power. Yeah.
Right? Here's somebody whom you hold every single card over. They have literally nothing over you. They're not as smart as you. They're not as experienced as you. They don't have power as you.
They can never be.
Like, there's nothing they could ever do. And it sort of sounds like, it's sort of like masturbation with a blow-up doll. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, the blow-up doll will never judge you. The blow-up doll will never... Right. It's like the instinct, that the urge is to be able to find pleasure through union with no union.
Right, to find pleasure through union with an object. That you just, and also an object that you hurt. Like, and I don't even mean the abuse, I just mean like the concept of sex with a blank slate like, I think there is a little in that power, there is that, like, it's just the misogynistic.
But I think they have this sort of what I would identify as like a French mindset, which is like it's edifying.
Right,
I'm teaching.
Yeah.
It is edifying for the young woman to be welcomed into her womanhood by a man who knows.
Yeah.
A man with refined taste. A man with experience. That there's also
that is
this
the French theory.
Yeah, there's like this. It's a service.
Yeah.
Right. It's a service. And
okay, I'll give you that. I hate that, but I will give you that.
I mean, I think that's the paradigm, and I think that the reason so many people I'm going to say it's mostly men, were attracted to Epstein is because, like, he gave them permission to pursue this unbridled power and hedonism that they maybe on their own wouldn't have had the bravery to pursue.
Or the like motion.
Yes.
Like,
They wouldn't.
and a lot
There's
of these
so many
guys had
things
no
you-
motion.
Yeah,
They
like,
needed a facilitator to create
Yes.
that reality for them.
And unfortunately, I think like objectification is so widespread in our society, specifically of women post like the sexual revolution, that it's really easy. It's getting easier and easier to objectify.
Yeah.
It's like it used to be, right, that there would be a religious undertone, which would make you think like, oh, these girls, they have the sanctity of virginity,
Purity.
the sanctity of purity, the
Right.
sanctity of youth. Right, and that's actually there's something holy to
protect
that.
and
yes,
right,
that
and
we
that's
as a
just
society or as even
now.
a paternalistic figure, your drive would have previously be to like you would get high off of the control of like I protect that sacred thing, as opposed to now the high is I desecrate.
Right.
Which
right.
is like
possession
yeah.
of the sacred thing. And I guess they can both be possession, but one is
But
a
one
much
is
gentle
like-
is a gentle possession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's terrifying. Like we basically, and I think this is also why everybody's so obsessed with Epstein, is like it heralds a new hedonism. Like it heralds a new paganism.
A new low,
you know?
yeah.
Which is
cultural
like
accepted.
yeah, which is
mess.
like not that different than, and look, I don't want to talk smack about pagans or anything because I don't know that much about them, but like there is something distinctly un-Christian.
Oh yeah, I'm like
about
in my
it.
mind, I'm like it's like the Satyricon.
Yes,
it
exactly.
is like a
Exactly.
yes, a very debauched and what is the word I'm looking for when you are indulgent sort of
Right.
horror, right?
Right, and it's sort of like pleasure in like nothing is stopping the pursuit
Yeah,
of
there's
pleasure.
like nihilism
Yeah.
is, and we are in a nihilistic moment, I think, that does not do anything to slow that down.
And also, I just feel like if you live in a society where businesses are prioritizing extracting labor out of people and there's no sanctity to like
Yeah.
the dignity of human work, then it's no great leap at all to like not respect the sanctity of people in any
Like
capacity.
and I think the pandemic sped that bodily disrespect.
Okay, hold that. That's really interesting. Hold that thought. We're going to take a short break. If you want to hear the second half of the episode, please go to patreon.com/criticalbabestheory. You can become a subscriber. We so appreciate your support. This is Nicole Treska again, and we will be right back.